The city was gasping for air in the heat of summer. Gray concrete buildings shimmered as if sweating under the sun, and the air on the streets was thick with a mingled sense of sweat and exhaust fumes. The courthouse rose like a monolith in the middle of this chaos, cold, distant, yet inside, a battlefield where thousands of stories collided. Today, in courtroom 3B, a battle that began over a woman's hair would test the fragile boundaries of justice. Maya Johnson, in her early 30s, stepped into the courtroom with her long black braids cascading down her back. Time seemed to pause for a brief moment. Her braids stretched from her shoulders down her spine, each strand woven with the pain, struggles, and triumphs of her ancestors. Her eyes gleamed, not with anger, but with resolve. These braids weren't mere adornments. They were a statement, a challenge, an identity. And a few months ago, a police officer had tried to strip that identity away with a pair of scissors. Sitting in the defendant's chair was Officer Daniel Carter. He wasn't in uniform, but the arrogant, self-assured look in his piercing blue eyes hadn't faded. He claimed he had cut Maya's hair because it was a security threat. But that was just an excuse. The truth was far uglier. Carter's prejudice had erupted into violence, driven by a deep, suppressed hatred for Maya's black identity. That evening, the city was cloaked in darkness when Maya's car was stopped at a checkpoint in a rough neighborhood. Streetlights flickered, and the hot air made the asphalt ripple like a mirage. Maya often worked in these areas as a social worker. That day, she was heading to help a client's children. Her car, an old blue sedan, bore the marks of time, but was well kept thanks to Maya's meticulous care. Officer Carter approached with a flashlight in hand. He had the look of a hunter eyeing his prey. "ID," he barked, his voice as sharp as a blade. Maya, trying to remain calm, reached into her bag and handed over her identification. But Carter's eyes weren't on the ID. They were locked on her hair, her thick, neatly braided crown. A repulsive smirk curled on his lips. "These braids," he sneered. "What are you hiding in them?" Maya raised her eyebrows, caught between disbelief and fury. "In my hair? I'm hiding nothing, officer." Carter reached for his baton. "Step out of the car," he ordered. "We need to do a search." Maya's heart pounded in her chest, but she didn't protest. She knew better. Protesting in such situations only made things worse. She stepped out, hands raised. Carter called over another officer, a young, quiet man who stared at the ground, seemingly unwilling to witness what was about to unfold. At the station, Maya was taken to a small room. Concrete walls bathed in the cold glow of fluorescent lights made the space feel even more oppressive. A single table stood in the middle of the room, and on it lay a rusty pair of scissors. Carter picked up the scissors, and Maya's stomach twisted. "These braids," he said, twirling the scissors between his fingers, "are dangerous. We don't know what could be inside them." Maya tried to keep her voice calm. "Please," she said. "My hair is part of who I am. Don't touch it." Carter smiled, but not the smile of a friend. It was the grin of someone ready to shatter his soul. "Part of your identity, huh?" he said with a mocking laugh. "This filth? That's your identity? You people are all the same, always hiding something." In that moment, Maya's world went dark. Carter brought the scissors to her braids. The first cut echoed through the room. Snip. Tears welled in Maya's eyes, but she didn't cry. Each snip was a knife to her heart. As her braids fell to the floor, so too did pieces of her history. Songs her mother had taught her, memories braided by her grandmother's hands. Carter grew more frenzied with each cut, as if trying to erase her existence, her blackness. The young officer stood silently in the corner, eyes glued to the floor. "Dan, that's enough," he murmured, but Carter didn't hear, or didn't care. Maya's hair now hung raggedly around her shoulders, uneven and wounded. As he cut the last braid, Carter sneered. "That's better. More civilized." Maya, hands cuffed, bowed her head, not in defeat, but in fury. Inside her, a fire had been lit. A fire that burned not for vengeance alone, but for justice. The courtroom felt like a stage. Wooden benches bore the weight of years, their varnish worn, their surfaces etched with scratches. The air was thick with tension and anticipation. Maya sat beside her attorney, Lena Carter, a sharp, passionate young woman whose last name was a bitter coincidence. Unlike Daniel, Lena's soul beat in harmony with Maya's. Prosecutor Richard Hayes stood in his gray suit. "Your Honor, this is merely a misunderstanding." Officer Carter perceived a threat and acted accordingly. These allegations of racism are sensationalism meant to stir public emotion. Lena slammed her files on the table and rose. "This is not a misunderstanding, Your Honor. This was a deliberate, racially motivated assault. My client's hair was a part of her identity." Officer Carter acted with the intent to degrade and dehumanize her. Just then, the heavy courtroom doors creaked open. Judge Eleanor Brooks entered, robed in black. Her long, thick braids flowed over her shoulders, just like the ones Maya used to wear. Each braid told a story, a triumph, a struggle, a legacy. Carter froze as he saw her. It was as if his guilt had taken human form and walked into the room. Judge Brooks took her seat, scanning the courtroom without a flicker of hesitation. "Proceed," she said, her voice calm but thunderous. As the trial progressed, Maya's story reflected back at everyone like a mirror. Lena called witnesses. The young officer from the station admitted that Carter had lost control that day. A neighbor testified to Maya's selfless work in the community. But the most powerful moment came when Maya took the stand. The courtroom fell into silence. Maya took a deep breath. "That day," she began, her voice trembling but firm, "when they cut my hair, they didn't just take strands of hair. They took my ancestors' legacy, the songs my mother taught me, the memories braided by my grandmother's hands. Every braid was a chain, and they broke that chain because my blackness made them uncomfortable." Carter shifted in his seat. His face showed no remorse, only discomfort. Judge Brooks locked eyes with him. "Officer Carter," she said, "let's hear your side." Carter stood. "Your Honor, I was doing my job. I thought she might be hiding something in her hair. It was a security procedure." Brooks raised an eyebrow. "Something? Like what, Officer Carter? A knife? A weapon? Your report shows nothing was found." Carter stammered. I don't know, Your Honor. It was just a suspicion." A murmur rippled through the room. Judge Brooks raised her hand for silence. "Can you explain how a woman's braids pose a threat? Or was this simply a reflection of your own biases?" Carter had no answer. His silence was its own confession. The trial reverberated beyond the courtroom walls, echoing across the entire city. The hashtag Justice for Maya spread like wildfire on social media. Protests erupted in the streets. Maya's story was being shared everywhere. But Maya didn't want to be remembered only as a victim. She was a fighter, and her revenge would be justice. Lena dug into Carter's history. It was soon revealed that he had exhibited similar racist behavior before, shielded each time by the excuse of procedure. One case involved him assaulting a young black man under dubious threat claims. In another, he screamed, "You'll get deported," at a Latina woman. Carter was a machine fueled by prejudice. Upon learning this, Maya's anger turned into purpose. Justice couldn't end with Carter's punishment. The system itself needed to change. During the trial, Maya launched a movement called Our Hair, Our Freedom. It aimed to celebrate black women's identities and unite against racist aggression. Women across the city flooded the streets, braided, natural proud. Maya's story had become the spark of a revolution. On the day of the verdict, the courthouse was surrounded by crowds. Journalists, activists, everyday people, all awaited Judge Brooks's ruling. Maya sat beside Lena, calm in posture, but fire burned in her eyes. Carter whispered to his lawyer, his face pale. Judge Brooks took the bench. "This case," she began, her voice filling the room, "is not just about one officer and one citizen. This is a test of our society's soul. Racism hangs over us like a shadow. Today, we shine a light on that shadow." The courtroom held its breath. Officer Carter's actions were not a security measure. They were a hate crime. Maya Johnson's braids were part of her identity, her history, her strength. Cutting them was not just physical. It was an act of dehumanization. Carter's face collapsed like a crumbling mask. Judge Brooks delivered her sentence. Carter would be dismissed from duty, face prison time, and pay significant damages to Maya. Most importantly, the city's police department would be required to undergo mandatory anti-racism training, developed in partnership with Maya's Our Hair, Our Freedom movement. The courtroom erupted in applause. Maya cried, not from pain but from joy. Lena embraced her. "This is your victory," she whispered. Maya's life was forever changed. She was no longer just a social worker. She was a leader, a symbol, a revolutionary. She braided her hair again, each strand now a victory, each knot a new story. The city began to transform under her leadership. The police training programs forced officers to confront racial bias. The Our Hair, Our Freedom movement spread across the country. That night, in her chambers, Judge Brooks ran her fingers through her own braids. She remembered when, as a young attorney, a colleague told her, "Your hair isn't professional." But now, those memories had a new meaning, shaped by Maya's triumph. Maya looked back at the courthouse one last time. The concrete walls were still cold, but inside a fire had been lit, and that fire would burn until justice was rebuilt. Hello, dear viewers. We've reached the end of our story. Maya's struggle, her search for justice, and her resistance have inspired us all, haven't they? Sharing this story with you is truly special for me. What do you think? What would you have done in Maya's place? How can we, as individuals, fight against racism? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice gives this story deeper meaning. If this story moved you, please don't forget to like the video. Your likes help our content reach more people. And subscribe to our channel so you won't miss our next stories. Tap the bell icon to get notified as soon as we post something new. See you in the next story. Take care.